Hey guys, it's Tommy here with Poke Accountant and welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about taking profits. As you know and have seen, the market is just going absolutely crazy right now. Really taking the charge at the current moment is 151. We see the sealed at really crazy prices, the ETB at 600, the Pokemon Center ETP like well over 1,000. You got the booster bundles at like what, 150, 160. The booster bundle displays like nearly $2,000. You got the UPC like 800 going into 900. And what's the most crazy of all are the singles. The singles are at a crazy high, and I don't think anyone really predicted or expected that to happen, but that's what's going on. Prismatic Evolution has had a great leg up these last few weeks, and so on and so forth, right? So the Pokemon market isn't really stopping, and I want to talk about taking profits because I hear it all the time in this space, and like I wonder if people actually know what they're talking about, because taking profits doesn't mean you sell something and then you reinvest that money into something else. That's just exchanging one product to another, right? Like, sure, you may have exchanged your Evolving Skies booster box for $2,500 cash, but then you went ahead and took that cash and you bought something else, that is worth $2,500, right? You're pretty much moving and exchanging assets, but you're not taking profits. And today I just want to talk about this a little bit. It's a subject that I don't think anyone really talks about in this space. It's always buy, 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 buy. But if everyone were to just buy and to never sell, there would technically be no profits, right? Everything is an unrealized gain until the gain is realized. And even if you realize a gain to reinvest that product, it's still unrealized, right? I think that's the thing that people don't really understand in this space, and it's so mind-boggling to me. Like, I think a really good example is Evolving Sky Booster Box. It's worth 2,500. If you sold that for $2,500 and you kept that in your hand, that would be taking in profits. If you sold that Evolving Skies booster box for 2,500 and then you exchanged that for five Destined Rivals booster boxes, you've essentially converted it from one asset into cash and then back into another booster box. You can simply do the same thing without ever receiving the cash. If you traded one Evolving Skies booster box for five Destined Rivals booster box, are you taking profits? No, you're just changing one product to another. And like, so what if you bought that Evolving Skies booster box for $500? Right? There's $2,000 of unrealized gain. If you sold it and you received 2,500, now that $2,000 gain is realized. But if you sell it, you get that 2,500, you realize a $2,000 gain, and then you reinvest it in booster boxes, five Destined Rival booster boxes. You basically just converted your booster box into cash and then into booster box again. And if you like did this on TCG Player, right? If you did this, you would have to report taxes on it. So it's just like you converted one asset into another, and depending on your tax bracket, you're paying like 15% taxes on it. Could be more if you're in a high tax bracket. I don't think that's really the case, but like 15%, you're paying taxes on it. And I just don't think the community understands. And that's what this video is for. I'm going to go over a few slides and just talk about it a little bit with you guys. So I created a nice little PowerPoint taking profits in Pokemon. All right, so I have an example here. Let's just say in 2022, you spent $10,000 for 40 Evolving Skies booster boxes, meaning you paid $500. Is that math right? Did I mess it up? I think that should be 20 booster boxes. I'm sorry. You bought 20 booster boxes from Evolving Skies and you paid $500. So you spent $10,000 on Evolving Skies booster boxes in 2022. Next scenario, 2023, you spent $10,000 and you were able to buy 160 Crown Zenith Elite Trainer boxes for $62.50 each. Okay? And so every year we're spending $10,000 and we're acquiring one product. And I know like it's not like this. We buy different products and sometimes we exchange one thing for another, right? It gets damaged, you rip it, things happen. But let's just stick with this in this scenario. 2024, you spent $10,000 for 160 151 ETBs, paying $62.50 each. And if you did that, you're doing phenomenal right now. You've made so much return on your money. Same thing in 2025. You spent $10,000 for 100 ETBs, right, of Prismatic Evolution. You notice products are getting more expensive as time goes on just because of the demand and the shortages right now. So, right, a lot of people made this play. They spent money, they bought a bunch of ETBs, and now they're up on their money. And the current play would be Ascended Heroes ETB, right? If you went out to the market, you could probably get a little bit more than 100 ETBs for $10,000, but let's just keep the numbers simple for the sake of this exercise and what we're talking about. And so we can look at the metrics here. I'm going to change this number. If this was the case, between 2022 and 2026, so for the last 4 years, for the last 4 years, right, you spent $50,000 investing into Pokemon, meaning each year you took $10,000 out of your bank and you converted that $10,000 into Pokemon assets, right? And as a result, these are the products that you own, and you own a pretty good amount of it, right? If we look at the fair market value, the value of these products today, that would be $274,000. Amazing, right? That means in for Evolving Skies, right? That would just mean in the 4 years that you've owned it for, you would have, was it 10x your money? Crown Zenith, for the 3 years that you've owned it for, you would have 4.8x your money. 151, for the 2 years that you have held it for, you have nearly 10x your money. And Prismatic Evolutions, for the 1 year you've held it for, you have doubled your money. Now, Ascended ETB, you're holding it right now and you haven't made anything yet, which is expected, right? I think this is, pretty normal. Those of you who have been investing in this space longer, you'll be able to capitalize on, these kind of products. Those of you who have been in the space maybe shorter, like midterm, a few years, right? Maybe you've gotten some of these gains in. And those of you who joined last year, like me, you may only have some gains locked in, right? We're not seeing the crazy gains yet because, it takes time. Pokemon takes time, and we don't always invest in the best products either, right? Right here, for the sake of this example, I've listed some really good products, right? There are also products that did not do so well, and just to name a few, there's the Shrouded Fables, there's the Darkness Ablazes, there's what else is there? There's like Pokemon Go. There's just all sorts of products that just didn't perform the same as these popular sets here. But that's a conversation for another time. Today we're talking about taking profits. Because what I think the Pokemon space is thinking right now is that, hey, let me just bring this guy over here. I'm going to use this as like a little drawing pad. So we're going to do this. Excuse me for a second. I'm trying to make space so I can draw an example for you guys. This is definitely like me with my accounting background. I really love this stuff and I like talking about it, and I think it's good to know what you're exactly doing, because for the 5 years you've been in this space, right? Let's just use this example from 20 and 22 through 20 and 26. You spent a total of $50,000, okay? You spent $50K, and where is this money coming from? It's coming out of your bank, right? It's coming out of your bank, and you are converting it to Pokemon. You're converting it to Pokemon. And how much exactly is this Pokemon worth right now? We said it's currently worth 274K, right? 274K. I think what most people are thinking of in this space right now is that to take profits, it means to sell, like, let's just say you sell $100,000 worth of this, okay? So you sell 100K. So you sell 100K. And now, you get 100K cash. And, as a result of that, you're going to pay taxes, you're going to pay shipping fees, right? There's like Probstein will take about 15%. So realistically, you're actually only getting 85K, right? And let's just say, your tax bracket's pretty standard. You're going to pay 15% long-term capital gains taxes on that. And roughly you are left with like 72K, I want to say. So you did pretty well. You're up 72K, and now you have 72K cash after expenses, after Probstein and various auctions fees, right? And you're left with 72K cash. What I think most people do with that 72K cash is that they reinvest it into Pokemon. So they get more Pokemon. Let me do this like this. So most people, what they've been doing is they've been reinvesting that into more Pokemon, right? And so they buy 72K worth of Pokemon, and they buy like maybe the newer sets. They buy like Ascended Heroes that's out, and they might get the Rayquaza set that's coming out in the year. They might get some Phantasmal Flame. They might be like, oh, I didn't get a chance to pick up some Destined Rivals. Let me do that. And it's good and all that to reinvest. But hear me out. That is not taking profits, because you are still leaving your money into Pokemon, which is not a bad thing. If you want to make more money in the long term, you have to keep your risk on the table. So subsequently, the money that you make, you have to reinvest it into more Pokemon. But there are ways to do this without having to trigger a taxable transaction or event, right? If you have like some older vintage stuff, like you have 151 ETBs, you don't have to sell it in order to get cash and then buy another product, because you might just pay fees and you might pay taxes on that. What you can do instead is you can exchange it. You could put up a post on Facebook Marketplace like, hey, I got a 151 ETB. I want to trade it for 5 or 6 regular Ascended Heroes ETBs. Or, hey, I have a Pokemon Center 151 ETB, and I want to trade it for a Ascended Heroes ETB case, right? So you get that one-to-one trade. No taxable event. You're not taking a loss on you're not taking a cut on your product because of margin, right? And you just get something that's clean cut, and you get a new product out of it. And your risk is on the table. You can reinvest into the future. That's not taking profits. That is just called rebalancing your portfolio. That's a rebalance. It's a repositioning. You are not taking profits because your risk is still on the table. So what is taking profits, right? Taking profits is not reinvesting it. So it's not this whole situation right here. People think this is taking profits. It's not. Okay? What is taking profits? Taking profits is, hey, I spent $50,000 on Pokemon, right? That's how much skin I have in the game. From my bank, from my W-2, from my business that I run, from the money that I saved and invested, I put $50,000 front-loaded into Pokemon. And now that 50K is in all these products, and guess what? They've appreciated over time, which is the hope of this, right? You want your assets to appreciate over time. And now you have $274,000 worth of assets now, right? And to take profits off the table, it wouldn't be like to take out 50K. So, because if you sold, let's just say you sold 50K worth, right? So you sold 50K. You sold $50,000 worth. You're not taking profits. You are taking out your cost basis. So you are recovering what you've invested. You're not yet taking profits. People think this is taking profits. You're not taking profits yet. You're recovering what you originally paid for it, right? And so, maybe to get $50,000, you have to sell about $60,000 worth of product, right? And maybe a little bit more after fees and all that. And hey, you're left with $50,000. And maybe to make this example simpler, like you sell $74,000 worth of stuff to get 50. That sounds awful. But now you have $210,000 left, right, of product. And this is what you're going to try to reinvest and flip and to grow in the future. But you've taken your 50K off the table, and now it's back within your bank account. It's back in your hands. It's back within your hands. So what can you do with this? You can invest it in a house, right? You can keep it in your bank. You can use it to run a business. But the moral of the story is you've taken that $50,000 out of a higher risk asset and you've recovered cash. You get where I'm getting at now? And you don't have to take just 50K. Some people have different strategies. Maybe, you want to sell like half of this stuff because you have a mortgage that you want to take on, right? You want to take out a loan for a mortgage. You got maybe $100,000 in your bank account and you're just short $50,000, or maybe you're short $100,000 and you want to take some extra profits out. So you would lower this 274 and maybe you take out 174K, right? And then now you're left with, after taxes and all that, you got like 125K. Now you're ready to pay off, like to pay the loan on a mortgage. Now you can buy a house that you can finally afford. And you're not like done with the egg basket. You still have like $100,000 worth of Pokemon, right? That's still trapped in there. And that is still going to grow over time. You're just taking risk off the table, right? You've recovered your $50,000 and even an additional $75,000 on top of that after taxes and fees, right? And you can now move this asset into a lower risk asset, into a home, which is, I think, the best product in the market. Like, come on, you guys are investing for something. Don't just stockpile a bunch of cardboard and not know what to do with it. I think that's just irresponsible. You should, if you want to keep the risk on the table, that's fine. But I advise sometime within your life to take profits and to do something meaningful with it, unless, you want to be trapped in cardboard forever, live your entire life and never take a single dollar out of it. That's fine too. It's really just up to you. But yeah, if you started with 50K for the last 4 years of investing, right, and you've turned into 274K in this example, you could have taken 125K out and that would be your down payment for your home. And you would still have $100,000 left in, Pokemon that you can reinvest in. This is house money right here. You can, grow it, you can exchange it, you can keep it in there, right? And when your situation with the house is like better, it's cleaned up, right? Your kids have gone off to college and, all this good stuff. You can buy a new car for your wife, right? Now you can slowly put money back into this investment vehicle. Life circumstances change. And if there are profits to be taken off the table, for a certain life event, for something that's going on in your life, I actually recommend doing it. Take that risk off, right? You can always put money back in the future when you've handled a situation. But if you got a life event and you're not willing to take some of this stuff off the table, like, hey, I don't know, man. At the end of the day, I am a CPA, and so, this is advice that I would tell clients, but of course this is not financial advice, so please consult your own financial advisor. I am a financial advisor, but I am not yours, so this is not financial advice for you. I advise you to think about these situations, make a decision that is good for you. The market is hot, and if you have like really, really crazy gains, right, and maybe you could take some risk off the table, I don't see why not. I think too many people are just like stuck in this whole cardboard mentality, and it's just like, what about some like other assets, you know? Like, hey, but it depends on everyone's risk tolerances. I'm just offering something out there. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying that, you know, this is a possibility. How you want to use that information is totally up to you. I hope you learned something from this video. And if you've made it this far and you found this video kind of insightful, you learned something from it, please leave a like, leave a comment. You know, what do you think of this topic? It really gets the algorithm going, and I appreciate it a lot. And if you could give me a sub, that would be awesome as well. We're nearly at 300 subs, so we're a quarter way to 1,000. I'm really stoked, and you know, honestly, couldn't have done it without you guys. Thank you so much for all the support. I love you all, and I think that's all I've got. So this is Tommy with Poke Accountant, and I am signing out. I'll see you in the next one.